In this tutorial, we're going to cover making your topography and your site information from an image. This approach is slightly different, and I'm going to cover creating a topography for a site and for one building. So in essence, you can combine your site information with your building. If you have multiple buildings on the site, I recommend that each one has its own file and that the site information is in its own project file. Okay, so I'm going to use this portion 10 to outline how I would create this this topography in Revit. So first things you need to do is go and open up Revit. Okay, so in Revit you're going to start a new project using your template. Okay. Okay, so once again we're going to focus working in the site view. The site view is in essence just this duplicate of level 0, and as in my previous video, it just has the view ranges, how the view ranges work set up differently. Okay, and you can see offset is 10,000, 10,000. Okay, for this exercise, I'm going to insert the image. So I'm going to go insert image. You can literally drag and drop as well. Okay, so I'm going to insert the image very quickly. Okay, and insert the file. Okay, the first thing we need to do is try and scale this image accordingly. So these grid lines are at 50-meter intervals. Okay, so I'm going to use the scale tool, zoom in as close as possible and scale this to 50 meters. Okay, so select there, and I'm going to scale this down to 50 meters. Okay, I can just do a quick check dimension. Doesn't have to be that accurate. I just want to make sure it's within 50. That's perfect. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is move this image to a location where I can use this as my shared coordinate. Okay, so where my project base point and survey points meet. So I'm going to move this site information. So grab the image and then move this information. Okay. All right, so I'm comfortable now that that's my origin, and I'm going to reproduce my site boundaries using this image. The first thing I am going to do, however, is create the contours. So I'm going to go to massing and site. First off, I'm going to set up my topography to work correctly. I'm going to switch this off. I'm going to insert another multi-value string in here. This is a multi-value, and then this will be, I usually just copy this value from above. I'm just going to make it 1000 for now. Go in here, Control C, double click again, Control V. Okay, pasted that value in there, and I'm going to make sure that this is my secondary contours and that this is my primary contours. Okay, make my primaries 1000. I'm going to make my secondary 250 for this exercise. Okay. It depends on the scale of your site how these vary, but generally your majors are either 1000 or 500, or your secondaries are 500, or your primaries will be 500, for example, and your secondaries will be 250. But that's generally the range we work within. Okay, I'll switch this off for now, and for the start value, I'm going to make this minus 1500. Likewise with this value here. Okay, and I'll explain. So it's just where the contours start working from and where they end, in essence. Press apply. Okay, now I'm going to go and create my topography by tracing these major contour lines. So I'm just going to use the major ones. The minor ones should kind of fill in between, and you can do some minor adjustments to the minor contours if required. Okay, but for now, I'm just going to use the major contours. So in this start at, let's assume that this 14,850, where it runs through over here, will be my ground floor level or my base level for my building. I can do minor adjustments later on, but in essence, my 0 value, so my project base point, which is currently at 0, will equal to this 14850, and we're going to make some adjustments later on to make things work a bit better. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is start tracing. So I'm going to say a minus 1000. Okay, so you'll realize that this level is 1000 lower than that, and then you're going to follow this contour line as best you can. I mean, for the type of work that you're doing this year, the accuracy that I'm achieving should be fine and should work well. I'm just going to get about that much. My next level is going to be 0. Okay, my 0 level will be this level over here. So here I can follow, and you can see it's starting to put in those 250 contours. And another thing you can do while we're doing this is change this to wireframe so you can see the information below. So here I can see there's a little hole here, but we can reproduce that in a minute. So here I'm going to follow this line here. And you can see what I said earlier. These levels are starting to try and work with each other. Okay. And contours generally do work like that. Okay, so all I'm trying to do is just go past the site here, so I've got enough information to build my site with. Okay. Okay, so I've used, this level here should have been this level over here, so my apologies. I'm just going to delete those for the time being. It'll still keep my topography there. Okay, let's just delete all these again. So let's start my level 0, which should have been this 1400. My apologies. So let's quickly do that. So that's going to be my level 0. Okay, so just use enough points so that I can start creating a topography. My minus 1000 will be situated over here. So here I'm going to pull this back. And you'll see these contours will start making sense. They'll start following each other more or less. Okay, but for the type of accuracy we're trying to achieve, this is perfect. Okay, the next level I need to work is a meter up. So I'm going to say place points. I'm going to say this is 1000 higher. Okay, and here I'm going to literally just follow. There's a little dip here. Okay, but these contours will start trying to work with each other, and you can see they are starting to get quite close. Okay, the more of these you put in line, the more accurate it will become. Okay, but as I said, we can fine tune a lot of this information later on. Okay, I'll stop there. Okay, my next contour level is going to be 2 meters. So it looks like the site does flatten out a fraction at the top. So I'm going to take this level as my 2 meters. So I'm just going to start here. It looks like there's a little plateau, but for this exercise, I'm just going to follow this line here. Okay. Cuts back, cuts back. Okay, I'll just keep going until I have enough here. Okay, great. I see there's another major contour line over here. Okay, my apologies. That one. So this 85 was higher. So the meter one, so place point, my 2001 was actually this line here. So I followed the wrong line. Color's quite deceiving. Yeah, that's starting to look more accurate. Okay, so this site does fall quite a lot. I'm not worried about that little piece there. Okay, and then 3 meters will be my last one. So my 3 meters will be this top level over here. And I'm just gonna, for this sake, I'm just gonna take it back to there. Okay, so in essence, if I finish the command now, I go to my 3D view. Okay, and I must just make sure that if I go to VG, topography, I'm just going to make sure my major and contour lines are set up correctly. So you can go straight to the object styles from here, or alternatively, you can go to manage, object styles, and let's go to my topography. Okay, so these I want to be set at 5. The secondary contours are 2, and I want these gray. Okay, I'll make them quite a dark gray. Okay, press apply. Okay, so now you can see my major. So I'm going to set my scale maybe in this view to 1 to 500. So now you can see my major contours and my minor contours. Okay, and I know that I'm working with my site here. And you can see that the site does fall, but let's quickly go back to our site view, and now I'm going to put my site boundary around the site. Okay, so again, massing and site. So I'm going to go to site boundary, so I'm going to say create by sketch, and here I'm just literally going to create 4 rectangles to define. Okay, and remember this needs to be a closed loop. This I'm going to make it snap right as close to that point as possible. It doesn't have to be 100% for what the type of work you're trying to do. Okay, just want to snap vertical for now. I'll just make it snap vertically, and then SE snap end, it'll close that boundary. Finish the command. Okay, so if I hide this image now, let's hide the image. So in essence now I've got my site boundary, okay, and I have my topography in essence. So I can go back to shaded. So what's interesting, my topography information always shows through. Okay, you might have to adjust the line weights for the site boundary. So let me show you where you do that very quickly. Manage, so additional settings, so line styles, and here you're going to go and find I'm looking for, okay, that's in site information. So VG, you're going to go to site information, site. Okay, we're looking for property lines. Okay, so object styles. We go to site, property lines. So here I'm just going to change this to be, I'm just going to use a center line for now, a center line small. Okay, center line small for this exercise. Okay, that looks better. Right, at the scale we're working. Now, there is, we have a situation where I actually want to move my project base point. So it will move the whole project. So let me just grab my, okay, so ideally you want to put your project base point here and move your site away, for example, so where your building starts. So you actually need to work out where that would start roughly. So I'm going to grab my project now, and I'll change this later on. I'm going to move my project over here. You'll notice that everything will move with it, but I'll move everything back in a minute. So let's bring back the image and switch back. Okay, so I want my survey point to work with this image. So let's grab my image, and I'm going to move it from there to there. That's fine. I've got this point as a reference. I'm going to move my site, and this information I'm going to move this back to my survey point. Okay, so this is where I want to, for example, my project base point for my building will be in this area over here, but my survey point's over here. So in essence, I can use this as a setting out point for my building, so it'll tell me where it is in relation to this boundary lines point, for example. Okay, so we're going to cover this in a minute. So I might just draw the, I'm going to use a tool just to quickly cut the site out a bit smaller, okay, to make it work better with my site. I don't need all this other information for this example. Okay, so I'm just going to go back to hidden. I'm going to select the slide. Okay, you can go to massing and site, and here I'm going to split. I'm going to split the site. I'm going to create split. I'm going to select the object, and I'm going to create offset lines from the site boundary. So let's say offset them by 10 meters. Okay, and I'm going to create a line on that side, a line on that side, a line on that side, and a line on that side. This line, however, I'm going to take a bit further. I'm going to do that. I'm going to finish the command. We'll go to 3D view. So what this has done, it split the surface in two. I can get rid of that part of the surface. Now I've got a clean topography to work with around my site. So if I go back to my site plan, you see now that I've got a very clean site topography. I'm just going to use the filled region very quickly to kind of define where the road goes. Okay, so you can see here the road. I want to define the road on this topo surface. Okay, so for this I'm still going to leave it transparent. I'm going to go and say sub-region. Okay, so here I'm literally going to drag trace over this bit of line work. It doesn't matter, you can work outside. Okay, I'm just using this to define where my road curb and road edge will be roughly. Okay. Alright, that's out of my site, that's fine, I can come back to this side. I'm not worried about using actual dimensions here for the time being, but in essence, you can start using that 7.5 meter principle for a road. But for now, I just want to define, again, I just want to kind of stop, doesn't matter. Okay, I'm going to use that. So if I go to my 3D view now, I've got two splits. So now this one, I can go and give it a new material. Okay, and I can call this asphalt, for example, for road. And I'm going to make this grass, for example. Okay. I should have a grass. Okay, I might just leave it as earth for the time being. Okay, so let's just find my earth layer. There should be an earth layer, so let's go back here. Earth. So what I'll do with my earth layer, I'm going to edit my earth layer and just give it a grass material. But I'm just going to make it just in this material. I'm going to. So you can make up these materials, but I'm not going to worry about this for now. Okay, so in essence, this is my road, and now this is my earth. So if I went back to sites and I go and switch it back on, okay, in essence, so here's my site, and here is my earth. So you can go and draw in the other sites around here as well using this method, creating your site boundaries. But in essence, I'm happy the way this works for the time being. The next thing we can do is we can start looking at putting these labels in and making that work correctly. Okay, so we've taken this value. Let's go back here and switch this to wireframe. So we've used this 14850 as our, let me just say edit contours. Okay, that needs to be a major contour at 0, so finish. Okay, so I need to make sure that that's my major contour. Okay, so here I'm going to go here. So here I'm just going to say minus, so this will be minus 2000, sorry. And minus 2000. Okay, we need this to line up. There we go. Okay, so now that our major contour lines up with the major contours, and you can see that these are starting to kind of fall in place. Now, we made the assumption that this contour over here was going to be our 0 level. Okay, and that was going to be this 148, will be this number here, 1485 above sea level. Okay, so let's go back to our site view. So just remember that number, 1485. Okay, so let's just go back to shaded for the time being. So if I went and dropped my labels along here, okay, you'll notice that it is referencing these levels from the ground floor level. Okay, so let me just also double check something's not working here either. Let me just double check something else. Okay, modify. So let's change this to 0, 0, 0, apply. Okay. Let me just check my topography, edit. Okay, sorry, my mistake. So this 14850 was my level 0. Okay, you can see that these are my level 0s here. If you click this elevation mark at 0, if I click this one over here, that should be my meter. Okay, that's correct. Okay, so finish that. So go back here. I'm going to say minus 2000 and minus 2000. Okay, apply. Okay, all right. So what needs to happen is this survey point will need to move down towards sea level in order to make these work correctly. Okay, so if I go here and edit type, okay, so I can either use my survey point to reference these points from or my project base point. For this exercise, I'm going to tell them to reference my survey point. Okay, I'm going to change this to meters. Okay, and then have 2 decimal places. Press OK. Okay, and I'm going to change this to Century Gothic so it matches my other font styles. Okay, I'm going to change this to 1.8. Okay, press apply, press OK. All right. Now, what needs to happen is this survey point needs to drop by this 148. Okay, so you've got 2 options. You can either, so for this option, what I would do is I'll change this elevation. I know, you drop this value, my apologies. This value you drop. Okay, so you're going to go to 3D view. Okay, we're going to go to VG. You're going to switch on your site information. Okay, you're going to switch on your survey point only. Okay, survey point, press apply. Okay, now I'm going to go to right view. I'm going to select my survey point. I'm going to move it down. So it'd be 1, 4, 8, 5. Just want to get the exact number. 1, 4, 8, 5, and then it's 3 zeros. 1, 2, 3. Enter. Okay, so it's going to be way down there. So in essence, this is how much is above sea level, but it hasn't affected your levels. So for example, now we could start changing our levels. This is a great example. So if I change my levels to work from my survey point, guess what happens? They start working correctly. They start referencing the correct level from sea level. And this is very important to understand. Okay, but for now, I'm just going to change this back to 0 because we know that we're using our project base point as our 0 for our building. Okay. Okay, now that's great. So if I go back to 3D view, my apologies, site plan view, now these levels should start working correctly. So that 1486 should tie in with the 1486 I took from here, for example. Okay, so this was my 0 level in essence. That was my meter above. So in essence, this is my ground floor level. The rest work up. Okay. So now you can get an accurate interpretation of your site. And then when you start building your building, so for example, I want to put a building in here, so I can start using these tools. So for example, if my building was going to sit in here, I can use a pad. So go to massing and site again. I'm going to use a pad. So say my building lines were 4.5 meters from the side and 5 from the front. I'm going to use my pick line tool and say offset 5 meters from here, so my building can sit there, and then 4.5 from the side boundaries. Okay, so in essence, my building can now sit somewhere in here, for example. So, okay, now this is important. If we go to 3D view, this pad now is sitting exactly in level with. I'll select this guy. It's going to work off level 0. So our level 0 in essence was this part of the site here. Okay, so this is a meter up. So if I went 1000 above ground floor level, you can see it's exactly at the right level. So this is critical when you're trying to place your building. However, sometimes the building will have a step in it. So let's quickly tackle that scenario. So if I went to site, I'm going to edit boundary. So I'm going to duplicate this boundary, copy, and I'm going to move this boundary So say now my building had 2 steps in it. I'm going to finish the command here. So that was my first step, and then the building steps up another meter at the back here. So I'm going to say create similar, and I'm going to use the paste tool, paste align to current view, and now I'm going to align. Pads can never oversail each other because then they won't work with the topography. And now this one's going to be let's call this 2 meters above ground level. Okay, and then finish. So now we'll have a building that will step on the site, and you're trying to maintain your cut and fill. So in essence, I've worked around the topography to make this building work a bit better. All right. So in essence, technically, this base, that's fine there. This will work. So at least as long as your ground floor level's at 150 above the natural ground level and your DPC works, this will work. Okay. Now, what's very interesting, once you've got a site in place, I can start editing this topography to work with my site a bit better. So if I went to my site view, okay, here I can start duplicating those points. So if I know that this, and you can get the value of the point, if this 2 meter, I can start manipulating. So let's grab this point here, copy. I can start manipulating how this site will work now. Get rid of that point because that's no longer. So here I can start grading my site a bit better. Okay, and for example, if I wanted to level this area out a bit more, here I can copy this point, copy it here, and say, but hang on, this point needs to be 1,500, and I need to make a plateau out of this. So here I can copy this point, and here you can start making, I'm just going to show you, I'm going to make a small indent in the site, like a little hole of some sorts. So say now, that's my minus 1,500. I've created a big flat plateau here. Let me just finish and I'll show you this and I'll cut a section through there as well. So in essence, I've made a flat point there. Let's go to site and I'll cut a section through there as well so we can start seeing that better. And I'll flip the section in a minute. So that will, let's do it that way and flip it that way. So here you can see I've made a flat spot on the site. Okay, go back to my site plan view, but for argument's sake, if I want to make a hole in the site here, okay, I'm going to place point. So you've got 2 options. You can say relative to surface, or you can say absolute. So let's say relative to surface. I'm going to say minus 500. So now it's going to put a point here, minus 500 relative to the surface. Okay, this won't look that neat for now. I just have to copy this point to the middle. And I'm going to drag this point, copy it, and put it in line with this point, more or less. Okay, likewise with this side. So I'm going to copy this point, put it there, copy this point, and put it there. So now, in essence, I'm making a little hole in the ground. Copy these, one more, put it in the middle somewhere. Copy this one, put this there, and then copy the back point again. Copy this one, put it over there. So now, in essence, we've made a little hole in the site, and I'll go and demonstrate it in a minute. So that one I'll put over there. Okay, these edges you can clean up if you just copy these 2 where you get that triangulation forming. Grab those 2, copy those 2 over there. And just put this in wireframe so you see this better. So in essence, these are 3D points in space. Okay, so if I went to 3D view. So these points are technically 3D points in space. Switch up my Y. So these are just points in space that I'm copying around. Okay, so here, just to neaten this up, I can copy this guy, put it over there. But it's working quite well already, so I don't really have to. Okay, you can fine tune these numbers so that looked like it was 900, for example. I can fine tune all of these, maybe make them just 1,000. So here you can select, keep control down to select multiple points. Okay, all of those I can change to 1,000, for example, to get it to work a lot more accurately. Make them all 1,000. Okay, great. Okay, so in essence, all I've done now is I've created a hole in my site. Okay. And if I went to my section view, so if I go back to my site and I go to my section, you can see I've made a hole in my site. Switch my line weights, and your line weights start working well. So we use the topography in its basic form. Okay, so I've created my road, and I can increase this to make my driveway here. Okay, but this will give me enough information to get my building in and get my site modeled accurately in my site plan view. Okay, I hope this helped.